Imagine a place that's just synonymous with paradise. White sand beaches, clear turquoise waters, lush jungles. For so many people, Thailand's Koh Tao Island fits that idyllic image perfectly. It's a real dream destination for travelers. But what happens when that dream destination clashes with the truly dark, chilling reality?
Yeah, it's a really stark reminder, isn't it, that even in the most beautiful settings, the truth can be incredibly complex and, well, disturbing. In this case, this specific one really brings that home.
Exactly. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous 2014 Koh Tao double murder. It's a case that didn't just shatter the island's serene reputation, it sent shockwaves right across the globe. We'll be looking into the tragic deaths of two young British tourists, Hannah Witheridge and David Miller, and the investigation that followed, which was, let's face it, deeply controversial and just scrutinized from every angle.
Right. And our mission here is really to unpack the complexities of this high-profile case. We're going to try and sift through the evidence, the accusations, and, that desperate rush for answers you so often see when international pressure just ramps up. This dive, I think, will really show us how an investigation can go completely awry under intense scrutiny. What happens when intuition unbelievably seems to trump facts, and the lingering questions, about justice and appearance that persist even today.
This is where the story becomes truly unsettling, and honestly, what we uncover next really makes you question everything about that initial narrative. So let's peel back the layers. Okay, let's set the scene first. Koh Tao in 2014. This was a hugely popular hub for backpackers, for holiday makers. It was really well known for its vibrant nightlife. It genuinely felt like a slice of heaven, a place people went to escape the everyday.
And that expectation, that idea of a relaxing getaway, it's crucial context here. Our victims were 23-year-old Hannah Witheridge. She was a UK postgraduate student taking a break, and 24-year-old David Miller, also a British traveler. They were both staying in the same hotel, and they had actually met on the island. Probably just, enjoying the atmosphere like everyone else.
Their last night started, as far as anyone knew, just like any other fun night out on Koh Tao. On September 14th, 2014, Hannah, David, and some friends had drinks at a bar right there on Seri Beach. We know from CCTV footage that the group stayed together until just after midnight, rolling into September 15th.
Yeah, the timeline becomes really vital here. Around 2 a.m., David met back up with Hannah, and sometime after 2:15 a.m., they left the bar together, presumably walking back towards their hotel along the beach. This would tragically be the very last time anyone saw them alive.
The next morning, the absolute horror. The discovery was made. Horrified hotel staff found David and Hannah's semi-naked bodies on the beach. David was found floating in the shallows. His head had been bludgeoned. Hannah was found lying on the sand nearby, also bludgeoned. And it was quickly confirmed she had been sexually assaulted during the attack. That idyllic scene was just utterly shattered.
What's immediately striking, I think, is how unprepared the local authorities seem to be. I mean, Thai police arrived quickly, sure, but it was obvious right away they were ill-equipped to handle a crime of this magnitude. We're not just talking about a lack of resources, but maybe a fundamental lack of training for, a major, complex crime scene like this.
It sounds like pure chaos. We're talking only 6 officers total on the entire island at that time.
Yeah.
They struggled, apparently massively, to control the crime scene. They allowed unauthorized people to just walk freely through the area, potentially contaminating evidence, right?
Absolutely.
And even more disturbing, spectators were taking pictures of the victims, pictures which then circulated widely on social media. This level of mismanagement, it really sets a worrying tone right from the very start, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this immediately escalated the situation globally. Because the victims were UK tourists, news outlets worldwide jumped on the story, which led to just immense international scrutiny of the Thai police. And here's a crucial insight, I think. This kind of global pressure, while maybe well-intentioned, often doesn't lead to a more thorough investigation. Instead, it can create this overwhelming rush, this need to close the case fast, blurring the lines between truth, maybe ineptitude, and even outright guesswork.
That's a really powerful point. So amid all this chaos, what was the first real evidence they actually found?
Well, early on, investigators did find some critical pieces. They discovered a bloody garden hoe, which was believed to be the murder weapon. But here's where it gets complicated stored away. The blood on it only belonged to Hannah Witheridge, which suggested, the use of a second blunt object, probably metal, against David. This immediately creates a question about the whole single weapon theory.
And there was a cigarette butt found too, wasn't there? What did that tell them?
Yes, exactly. A cigarette butt found, maybe 30 to 50 meters away, held the DNA of 2 Asian men. This DNA was later matched to DNA found on Hannah's body, suggesting perhaps that the offenders had shared the cigarette before the assault. But then, and this is a really important point, despite this physical evidence pointing towards Asian perpetrators, Thai police somehow felt, purely by intuition apparently, that the culprits could not have been Thai. This was a completely unfounded, premature assumption. But incredibly, it set the entire course for the investigation that followed.
Wow. And that initial unproven assumption that the perpetrators could not have been Thai, it just immediately led to this massive shift in focus. Police presence on Koh Tao increased tenfold, literally. And they began targeting the island's main immigrant population as potential suspects. Now, this immediately makes you ask, why? Why were they so quick to look outside the local population? What does that say about the, societal dynamics at play there?
That's exactly it. And to understand this move, you really have to grasp the social context on Koh Tao. Migrants from Burma, or Myanmar as it's now known, actually constitute a greater percentage of the population than Thai natives on the island. And as migrant rights campaigner Andy Hall highlighted at the time, these workers are often very much unrespected, unwelcome, and unwanted. This makes them incredibly vulnerable to exploitation, to abuse, whether it's by brokers, employers, or even sometimes corrupt officials. So this targeting wasn't just some random shift, it was arguably a deeply ingrained systemic bias kind of coming to the forefront under pressure.
And this vulnerability was exploited almost immediately, it seems. Around 200 Burmese workers were swabbed for DNA. It sounds like a heavily one-sided investigation already. Then, in late September 2014, so about 2 weeks after the bodies were found, 2 Burmese immigrants, Zaw Lin and Wai Phyo, were arrested. They had been spotted on some CCTV footage, apparently, and were initially picked up on immigration offenses. But while they were in custody, they confessed to the murders.
But then just a couple of weeks later, both men dramatically retracted those confessions. They claimed they had been tortured, basically forced into making them. This sudden retraction, especially when you combine it with that systemic vulnerability you just described, it immediately set the stage for a very, very controversial trial. It raised serious questions right away about whether those confessions were even valid.
The trial itself began incredibly quickly. October 14, 2014. Andy Hall, the campaigner, noted the case was really being hurried. And unbelievably, get this, defense lawyers were allowed only around 30 minutes to prepare with their clients before pre-trial witness testimony. 30 minutes? I mean, how can anyone possibly build a robust defense under those kinds of conditions?
It certainly raises fundamental concerns about due process, doesn't it? About the right to a fair trial. The prosecution's case, however, relied heavily on several key pieces of evidence. One was DNA, which police allegedly recovered from Hannah's body and also from that cigarette butt we mentioned, matching Lin and Phyo. They used this to paint the accused as, quote, sex-crazed, suggesting that seeing Hannah and David having sex on the beach, which itself was never proven, led them to rape and murder.
But here's where it gets really murky, and it's a massive red flag, surely. David Miller's DNA was not recovered from Hannah's body. This was explained away by saying a used condom found at the scene, which did match Hannah, was too contaminated to recover any male DNA. Right. And when the defense requested to retest the incriminating DNA, because of these doubts, which seems like a pretty standard request in a capital murder case, they were denied. They were told the samples were either used up or no longer viable. That in itself is highly suspicious, isn't it?
It absolutely undermines any faith in the integrity of that evidence, completely. Beyond the DNA, authorities also claim they recovered David Miller's phone at an address linked to the Burmese men, although Waipio himself claimed he'd just found it lying on the beach earlier. And perhaps the strongest part of the prosecution's case really were the confessions themselves. Police even filmed Waipio reenacting the killings. This video, which was made public years later, it oddly didn't mention the second murder weapon everyone believed was used on David. And it included this really bizarre moment where an officer is seen sort of stroking Waipio's head while asking him a leading question. That imagery, especially when you factor in the later torture claims, became incredibly unsettling for anyone watching it.
And those torture claims from the defendants themselves were horrific. Waipio alleged that in the hours leading up to his confession, he was abused, beaten, stripped naked, photographed, sexually assaulted, and threatened with murder to force that confession. Zalin relayed a very similar experience, physical assault, death threats, and both also claimed they were sort of coerced by promises of light sentences, maybe just 1 or 2 years, if they admitted to the crimes.
Yet in 2015, the court called these torture accusations groundless. They stated the defendants showed no evidence of injury. However, this directly contradicts what independent investigations found. Andy Hall's organization, for instance, began receiving calls about torture from workers just 13 days after the murder. They actively investigated these claims, even photographing injuries reportedly inflicted by Thai police during that period. So you have this clear discrepancy between the official court narrative and these independent reports, which immediately casts significant doubt.
So when you put all of that together, the rushed investigation, the claims of coerced confessions, the denial of DNA retesting, it certainly makes you question the entire narrative. It's been suggested quite strongly by some that David's phone was most likely planted by the police to help pin the crime on these two men. There was another incident, too, involving Hannah's phone. Police initially claimed it was found in an incriminating location away from the scene, but they later had to retract that statement when public photos clearly showed it was actually present at the crime scene itself. These details, they paint a picture of an investigation that wasn't just flawed, but potentially manipulative.
And the prosecution's case only seemed to deteriorate further, especially on September 11, 2015. That's when we heard the pivotal testimony of Dr. Pontip Rajanasanan, who was the head of the Thai Forensics Institute at the time, a very respected figure. She was a crucial witness. After retesting the alleged murder weapon, the garden hoe, she found no DNA match for Lin or Phyo, none at all. Instead, she found David Miller's DNA and the DNA of one other unknown male on the handle. This was just a massive blow to the prosecution's central DNA evidence, basically indicating the weapon likely wasn't even handled by the accused men.
So, Dr. Pontip reveals no DNA match for the accused on the weapon, the supposed murder weapon. And then she goes on to criticize the crime scene handling so severely, stating there wasn't even a proper forensics expert on the scene initially. And the person filling that crucial role had no formal training.
Apparently not.
It's almost unbelievable how many missteps, or perhaps, intentional omissions, might have occurred. The defense also accused investigators of failing to test other crucial evidence, like Hannah's own clothing or blood found on rocks and sand nearby. This truly exposed a picture of an extremely flawed, if not fundamentally compromised investigation.
Yeah, despite all these inconsistencies, despite the significant forensic doubts raised by their own top expert, Zaw Lin and Wai Phyo were convicted of murder, rape, and unlawful entry in December 2015, and they were sentenced to death. The verdict, as you can imagine, deeply divided public opinion, both in Thailand and internationally.
And the reactions were definitely starkly divided. David Miller's family praised the Thai authorities. They expressed their satisfaction with the outcome. However, the broader public response was far less favorable. Many felt strongly that Lin and Phyo were simply scapegoats, convenient scapegoats. This sentiment was strong enough that the activist group Anonymous actually targeted the Thai police website in protest. Hannah Witheridge's sister even endorsed their actions online, though it should be noted her social media posts did make some pretty sweeping generalizations about the Thai people as a whole.
Ultimately, in 2020, there was a development. The King of Thailand commuted their death sentences to life imprisonment, which, offered some relief from the immediate threat of execution, but it didn't change the conviction. And for many, especially migrant rights activists and legal observers, the lingering doubts persist very strongly. Many still believe the case is nowhere close to solved, particularly given the, quote, complete lack of credible evidence against them beyond those retracted, allegedly coerced confessions.
And this really leads us to the fundamental why. Why did it unfold this way? For many observers, this case was less about achieving true justice and perhaps more about keeping up appearances. The tourism industry is just absolutely vital to Thailand's income, to its global image. An unsolved, high-profile murder of two young Western tourists would have been devastating for the country's reputation and, frankly, its economy.
Huge pressure.
Immense pressure. It created this intense need to find someone, and find them quickly. Some even believe the cover-up, if there was one, is far more sinister, suggesting possible connections to powerful local families or organized crime, implying a much deeper systemic issue.
It's also really important context to remember that, tragically, David and Hannah were not the first, nor were they the last, foreigners to die mysteriously or under violent circumstances on Koh Tao. This history earned the island the very dubious moniker Death Island in some parts of the international press. This case, therefore, became more than just about these two victims. It became a powerful symbol of potentially deeper systemic issues within the justice system there, particularly concerning the treatment of vulnerable populations, like migrant workers, and maybe the influence of powerful interests over the course of justice.
So what does this all mean for us, as people trying to understand complex events? We've journeyed through these really tragic events on Koh Tao, from that image of a beautiful island paradise to a dark crime scene, and then deep into the murky waters of an investigation just plagued by controversy, allegations of misconduct, and ultimately a deeply contested verdict. This deep dive isn't just about a single crime, is it? It's really a stark illustration of how international pressure, systemic issues within a country, and the sheer power of perception can dramatically impact the pursuit of true justice. It reminds us that even in paradise, reality can be disturbingly complex and truth can be hard to find.
Yeah, and it leaves us with some heavy questions. When official narratives come under such intense scrutiny, like this one did, how do we, as informed learners, try to discern the truth, or at least get closer to it? And what responsibility do nations have to uphold true justice, especially when powerful interests like tourism or national image are potentially at stake? This deep dive has certainly given us, and hopefully you, much to consider and, frankly, to question.
We really hope you found these insights compelling and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed unpacking this complex and troubling story with us, please do share it with others who love to learn and think critically. You can also like this and subscribe to our channel for more deep dive discussions like this one. Your engagement really helps us keep bringing you these crucial insights and stories. Thank you for diving in with us today.